Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and now that all of the film has been watched and the grades are finalized, it's time to break down the 2019 NFL Draft prospect rankings. Before we dive into the prospect rankings video, let's take a look at how we go about grading these guys on film. For the skill positions, we take a look at a prospect's best and worst games statistically and the best matchup before we finalize his film grade. And from there, the player is assigned a grade on a 100-point scale. We don't believe in the term backup per se. If you're in the NFL, you're one of the best players at your position, so we consider you a starter in waiting, or at least that's how I would look at it if I'm a GM or a head coach. So without further ado, let's dive into the video with our #1 graded prospect at the position. Justin Hollins of Oregon earned the #1 outside linebacker grade in our prospect rankings. He's a really good run defender that does a great job in setting the edge and uses his length to make plays. He's surprisingly consistent in shedding blocks and still has room to grow as a pass rusher. And I talked to him down at the East-West Shrine game. He actually said that's an underrated part of his game. I love his awareness and his core strength at the point of attack. He's also a very good athlete that'll bring a ton of versatility to any defense in the NFL. I feel the same way about the outside linebacker class as I did the inside backers. It's a really strong class with a lot of depth at all levels. Emeka Ubule of Houston is so doggone versatile, it's not even funny. He's very comfortable in space, zone, man-to-man, and to me, he fits the new age mold of the outside linebacker in the league. Jermaine Pratt of NC State has a great understanding of route concepts and is able to get himself in position to make a play. Jamal Davis II was a defensive end at Akron, but is very comfortable on his feet, moving in all directions. He's a really good point of attack player as well. So is DeAndre Walker out of Georgia. I feel as though he'll have a solid 10-year career as a pro. Drew Tranquill of Notre Dame is another player with A+ football IQ that's dangerous on both ends of defense. Cardale Rollins may be one of the biggest defensive sleepers in the draft class. The Wingate star was a defensive end for the Bulldogs and was explosive off the edge, finishing with 21.5 TFLs, 17 sacks, and 19 quarterback hurries this season. At the FCS Bowl, the Tropical Bowl, and the College Gridiron Showcase, he was asked to stand up and play multiple spots at the second level and was able to perform as he did as a defensive end, despite never playing linebacker before. He definitely caught the attention of NFL scouts, and he'll be a name that you'll start to hear a lot of as the draft approaches. He's also expected to test really well. BJ Blunt is another small college talent from McNeese State. The former safety made the transition to linebacker really easily. The one thing that transcends size is heart and want to, and Blunt has both, as he doesn't allow his 220-pound frame to be a deterrent to him weaving through trash and getting to the ball carrier. He's also an outstanding tackler in space as well as in the hole. He was great all week at the East-West Shrine game, and the questions were all about whether you play him. Well, how about you play him on defense? Defense sounds about right to me. Blunt is going to be an excellent player in the league. I think Bryson Allen Williams of South Carolina is an underrated player in the class. He's a heady football player that's athletic enough to be effective in both man or zone coverage and plays a run away extremely well. He had a strong all-star game circuit. This was a guy that played DN, edge rusher, outside linebacker at South Carolina. He's a fantastic athlete. Moving on to prospects 11 through 20, Northern Illinois' Sutton Smith was one of the top sack leaders in the FBS this season, who has a tremendous first step. Jerry Iway of Fairmont State is outstanding in coverage. He caught my attention at the FCS and National Bowl as well as the Tropical Bowl this past December and January, respectively. He's a real lengthy player that does a great job of shrinking passing windows. Malik Carney and Henri St. Amour of Georgia Tech are sound point of attack players that use their hands really well to be disruptive. Speaking of disruptive, Neal of Northern Iowa was one of the more disruptive defenders in the FCS. He's an excellent pass rusher, has the pursuit skills you look for, and shows the necessary skills to thrive as a sandbacker at the next level. I feel the same way about Kenny Dotson of Nichols. The 6'2", 250-pound Dotson played more of an edge rusher role at Nichols and could even serve in that role as a pro. He's got really strong hands to set the edge, and they're quick enough to get off a block and get into the backfield. Kyle Rockwall of Eastern Michigan was one of my favorite prospects in the draft class. He was a culture changer for that Eagles program, racking up over 300 tackles in his career. He has the versatility to play inside or outside. I like how consistent he is in his pursuit of the ball carrier. Rockwall checks in at 26 on the list. Jawan Wells of Liberty and Caden Ellis of Idaho are guys that I feel as though are solid sandbacker prospects moving forward. Both have the ability to pressure the quarterback. Terrell Hanks had a good week at the Reese's Senior Bowl this past January, showing how explosive of a tackler he is upon contact. And Thomas Costigan of Bryant was a pass rushing extraordinaire for the Bulldogs and looked comfortable with his hand off the ground during the All-Star circuit in January. Ahmad Gooden of Stanford was a feared pass rusher in the FCS and has a lot of tools in his toolbox to get to the quarterback. You can tell that Gooden has a plan in mind each and every time he faces an offensive tackle, and during the Tropical Bowl, he was able to acclimate himself really well all week long, showing that he's very comfortable in an outside linebacker role. He's versatile enough to also be an edge rusher in a 3-4 or even put his hand on the ground in certain situations. I think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL. Kenny Wooten of Murray State was also another undersized edge rusher in the FCS. He's fluid enough to move in all directions, also showing good understanding of zone coverage as well. I believe he's more suited to play on the weak side where he can truly plant, accelerate, and go get the football away from him and also be a factor in a passing game. Moving on to prospects 31 through 40, and you see some excellent run and chase backers on this list. LeGrand Toya of Weber State and Josh Buss of Montana are solid prospects coming out of the Big Sky Conference that fit the bill. Jawan Young and Blake Cashman, I thought, had good all-around game on film, and Greg Menard of North Dakota State was a solid defensive end for the Bison, who is capable of making a move to sandbacker without any issues. Pete Swenson of Western Illinois is yet another solid defender coming from that Leathernecks program. He's a really good pass rusher that has above average football IQ, and I think out in space he's very comfortable, able to anticipate well to make plays on the ball. He's also a good one-on-one tackler in space, and I'm a fan of his game. Rounding out our prospect rankings for the outside linebackers, Malik Reid had a really good year for the Nevada Wolfpack, setting up shop in opposing backfield a lot this season. Andrew Van Ginkel was a very productive player for the Wisconsin Badgers after transferring from the University of South Dakota. Warren Messer of Elon is a player that can really play inside backer as well as outside backer, but I like his skills on the outside. He's got really good acceleration and is strong in his run support. Messer was the Phoenix most consistent star on the defensive side of the ball.
So that's a wrap here from the Football Game Plan Studios. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. And don't forget to check out and subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast. We can find our Scout Team podcast, which has a lot of 2019 NFL Draft prospect interviews. And also be sure to subscribe on YouTube to the Football Game Plan Network, located at youtube.com/footballgameplan.